albums are perhaps the most important in an artist's career. Now, if you have a promising debut album, people will usually overlook your shortcomings, as long as you take the time to iron out your weaknesses and improve upon your strengths with your next release. With his new album Big Fish Theory, Vince Staples makes a full commitment to carving out his own sound that ensures that he won't fall victim to a sophomore slump. Vince's debut album and his recent Prima Donna EP were releases that I thought had a lot of potential, but lacked some serious staying power. Prima Donna is the most similar to this newer album, as it has a similar embrace to a more electronic production style. Except the difference here is that Big Fish Theory doesn't suffer from the same problems that Prima Donna had. Repetitive beats that were often coupled with simplistic song structures were really the main crux of this EP. The beats on Big Fish Theory have a clarity that cuts through the air straight through to your ears, and they don't exist in the background at all. In short, Big Fish Theory is a much more ambitious project than Summertime '06. And Prima Donna, of course. With a runtime that is under half of what Summertime '06's was, this project doesn't waste any time getting mired in some of the more R&B focused filler that plagued the second disc of Summertime '06. There's interludes that are placed throughout the track listing, but for the most part, this album moves at a very brisk pace. This beat stood out to me for a number of reasons, from the trickling water noises, to the clapping and echoing percussion, to the deep and multi-layered bass line. This song is just a solid banger. The opening track, Crabs in a Bucket, also does a good job of adding to the whole water theme, as it mixes a bunch of ambient seagull noises with this really echoey and glitchy production that adds a lot of atmosphere to the album. The song also marks the addition of a frequent Vince Staples collaborator, Kilo Kish, who does a good job of adding some really sultry vocals to give the song really a straight-up house vibe, actually. Then, of course, it's no coincidence that the next track features a monologue from late UK pop star Amy Winehouse. At this point, the album makes it totally clear that it's going to double down on its commitment to some of the garage and techno sounds that are popular among a lot of UK producers. While Summertime '06 was largely produced by No ID, an artist who makes more traditional beats and has been known for mentoring a lot of rappers from the past 10 years, this album moves past the traditional and goes into more electronic territory that is seldom explored in more mainstream hip-hop. The percussion here is very manic in nature, as it mixes a lot of the hi-hats and snares with very characteristically snappy instrumentals that are typical for this type of techno and garage music. The synths have that really nice quality where they always feel like they're one step away from like glitching out or just wallowing in their own wonky tone. I actually found the track Love to be a really great example of this whole style working in action, as the layers of synths and percussion, they mix really well with some nice vocal samples that almost like whine and shout across the track. Vince has basically taken all of his experience he's had doing features with other artists like Flume and Sophie. He's basically allowed that to go rampant across this whole album. And of course, my favorite track on this album is a result of the collaboration between both Flume and Sophie, of course. The track Oh Yeah just has this really nasty and just booming bass that mixes with this sizzling percussion and just does an absolutely great job of just complementing all of the defiance that like Vince exuberates on his raps. The song even has some features from Kushka and Kendrick Lamar, who do a really great job of providing their own very memorable verses. The track also kind of touches on some of the bigger lyrical themes that are sort of associated with the Big Fish namesake of the album. Vince confronts ideas of fakeness here and calls out a lot of rappers for not being real in their terms of their personality and public image. It's really a theme that kind of persists across the entire album. The song Samo, I think, kind of takes this idea a little bit too far in a way, because it has a hook where he just kind of talks about how somebody's doing the same-o, and they're stuck in a rut doing the same thing all the time. It's kind of weird to me, though, because really, you have these lyrics about doing the same thing, but then it's like on probably the most least interesting beat on the album, really. The percussion here doesn't really even do anything to jump out at you at all, and the bass is really just this constant reverberation that doesn't even really add any progression to the song at all. He even makes the same mistake with A$AP Rocky here that he did on his last EP, where he just kind of has Rocky sing over top of the hook, and he doesn't even provide an actual verse that would amount to more than just wallpaper like his feature is here. Lyrics aside though, Vince's rapping on this project, it shows some actual growth, and it really shows that he's kind of building upon his confidence after his previous work. His nasally voice is obviously complemented pretty well by all this warbling electronic production. So basically Vince's delivery is not lacking here. But I think the lyrics, they don't really build upon his previous material, they sort of just kind of exist. Which isn't really a bad thing. I mean, they're not getting in the way of anything, of course. But really a lot of the lyrics on the album lose a lot of their impact when you take them outside of the context of all this high energy production. Vince seems to be laying this album down as sort of a declaration that he's the big fish in a small pond of rappers. And I think he does a really good job of delivering that message, but really it's one of the few actual messages that are even on the album. Vince has actually come out and said that he doesn't really want to be seen as like a conscious rapper per se, And this is sort of evident because the album doesn't really have a lot of those themes that were present on Summertime '06, where he talked a lot about his youth and like struggling to grow up in like gang violence and stuff. But while I think the overall messages of the album aren't really as deep, I think overall Vince does a really good job still of incorporating a lot of really cool imagery and just really fun wordplay that overall carries his delivery and makes him interesting to listen to, of course. The song Bag Back near the end of the track list, though, actually answers a lot of these shortcomings that some of the songs throughout the album were having. Vince delivers some lyrics on this song that are just completely agitated, as he just goes in with his flow talking about the politicians and the 1%. The whole angry protest vibe of the song is really sold, though, once you encounter the synths. And let me tell you, they are some awesome synths. On an album full of awesome synths, these are the best. They go through a whole crescendo of just really cool distortion and filtering effects that just overall adds to this whole idea of Vince just getting angry at politicians and just saying he's had enough with politics. Now, to finally reach a conclusion here, I would say this album is just a really welcome break from a lot of the trap-focused music that is just really swallowing mainstream hip-hop whole right now. While some of the more seasoned electronic fans may not be totally impressed with some of the beats on this album, I think when you take it as a whole hip-hop project, and you take Vince's raps and some of the guest collaborators into consideration, you really have what's some of the best hip-hop of this year. Really, this project, it just strives to be the absolute definition of short and sweet. Because the strengths on this thing, they really occur often enough that the weaknesses, they don't even really feel that annoying to you. This makes the replay value of this thing pretty high, because overall you really only have to invest about 35 minutes into this thing. And even the weaker tracks are still carried by some decent production. So really there isn't really even a lot of offensive material on this thing that makes it hard to get through. Vince Staples may not have wanted us to label him as a conscious rapper, but really if you look at this project, it's pretty evident that he wasn't doing this in his sleep. Which is why I would say it's definitely at least a 4 out of 5. And here's an outro.